there's often shame surrounded in a job search, not wanting to say that they're looking for a job, or even just the gossip of it all. Like, what are they going to be saying? Laying down that shame, telling everybody what you're doing, because then people are going to ask you. People are going to be like, how's that going? You're going to have to give them an update.
Mm-hmm.
And if that feels really scary, that's good. That probably means that it's worth doing. Hello and welcome back to Answer the Call podcast. I am so excited about our episode today. I've been looking forward to it, I want to say for weeks, but honestly, it's been for months because Lauren's story is so cool and it just has unraveled in such an amazing way in our time working together. So that's what we're doing on the episode today. As you've seen from the title, from the description, we're interviewing a client with a client success story. Hello, Lauren. Welcome to your Answer the Call podcast debut.
Hello.
I am so excited to have you here, and let's do, before we hop into some questions about your journey, can you just share what you were doing before and what you're doing now?
So right before I joined the Called career, I was working at a dental office. I'd been there about a year and a half. And before that, however, it's kind of important to tie in. I worked at a physical therapy practice. I managed it for 8 years. I'd been there for 10. I loved it. And then it was a small business that grew pretty rapidly. And then we sold to a larger company, so things just began to change really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, I decided to step away and try something new and went to the dentist office, but it was not my jam.
Yeah, because we talked while you were at the dentist office about coaching, maybe getting you signed up, and then it became apparent just in your story. You're like, nope, it's time to do this now. So you can can you tell us a little bit more about like the mindset that you were in about your career before starting coaching?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted something different, but I realized pretty quickly I didn't know what that was. And I tried kind of the generalist approach of applying to anything that sounds good and maybe this or maybe that. But I just had this like gnawing feeling that I'm going to start something and it still won't be it. And how can I really choose what is right to do as my next thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so relatable for people, like the it of it all, the it factor, if you will. And like, how do I actually find that? And can you remind me actually how you found the Called career?
Kelsey was on Jordan Rayner's podcast, and
Ah,
I've been a fan of his for a while and read his children's book.
yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of crossover with Jordan Rayner, as you know full well by going through the program, that we um, love what he does, and we integrate so many of the things that he does in our work. And then so Kelsey got to be on his podcast, and I love that is what connected us. So when you're thinking about like where you were before coaching and then coming through coaching, how did coaching kind of help shift your mindset about work? What was work to you before, and kind of how has that transformed?
It's changed a lot. Before I was realized when I left the physical therapy practice, I was really struggling with integration, like who I wanted to be and who I felt like I was being. I wasn't prioritizing my relationship with the Lord. I was working, and then my family kind of got the scraps at the end of the day. And so then at the dentist office, the good thing was that then I joined a Bible study. I was able to leave work at work and just go home and serve my family better. And so I felt like I was who I wanted to be. I was one person at work and I was one person at home, but it still didn't feel like the work I was doing was the right work, if that's, even though that may seem so silly, but it didn't feel like what I was called to do. Like I could use my skills, but it also just, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. So studying what the program offered and like what God really calls work and what it is and how it's not just now, it's forever and it's good. Like it's been a real game changer. And I no longer think of work as what I should be doing or what's a real job. I
Mhm.
now see it as if I'm working in my identity that the Lord gave me, it can look a million different ways. And as long as I'm within what He created me to do, let's do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that's a shout out for The Sacredness of Secular Work by Jordan Rayner as well. He talks a lot about just like the work that we do matters, and it's matters in so many more capacities than we often think as Christians. So, what would you say, like, how do you think in the role you're in now, which did we talk about the role that you're in now?
No.
Share the role you're in now.
So I just started as a branch office administrator at Edward Jones in
Oh,
Round Rock. Yeah.
amazing. I can't wait to talk more about how that even came to be. Um, how do you think, like, if you were to transition into that role a year ago before working together and kind of this transformation process that you went through, how do you think your kind of approach to the job a year ago would have been to the approach you have to it now?
For a very different reason related to coaching, I think it would be very different. Working through coaching and the various steps involved in the process made me get uncomfortable. It's part of why I signed up because I was
Yeah.
like, I need to do these things that are going to feel scary and that I'm not going to feel good at to learn that it's okay to do things that you're not good at and things that are scary.
Mm-hmm.
So just having walked through that, now I feel so much more prepared because this job is a lot of learn as you go, and I'm going to be
Yeah.
learning forever and ever. This is what I've learned so far: is I'll forever be learning new things, which is okay now in my brain, and I'll even be learning things for the first time while I'm doing them for the first time, which now is okay in my brain. But before, I would have I don't know if I could have done it. I might have thought this isn't for me. I'm not prepared. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna quote something, and halfway through explaining this, I might regret bringing it up because I don't know if I'll be able to quote it perfectly. But Kelsey brought this up recently on a call, and I was really mesmerized by this. And it's something called the AMCC part of our brain that it grows and flourishes when we do something that's uncomfortable. So when we do something new that we don't know how to do, and that part of your brain is apparently very closely tied to like your will to live and your will to be excited about life. Any
Wow.
neuroscientists and psychologists listening, give me grace here. Um, I did read an abstract of one study that talked about it, and it seems to align. So, all that being said, though, that's really a lot of what we worked on together, like growing without even knowing about it, right? Growing that kind of AMCC part of your brain of like, no, informational interviews, like you got to reach out to people, you got to talk to these people who you don't know, and it's not going to be as scary as you think. But I mean, before doing that, I know that was something that you were uncomfortable with. So tell me more about how the informational interviews were a really big game changer in this journey.
So it had been a while in stepping back from management and going to the dentist office. First, it had been a while since I'd been on Zoom. So I was like, I need to
Yeah.
brush up on my Zooming skills, my peopling, just getting uncomfortable. So reaching out to people and even asking for their time, it was easier than I thought it would be once I got to it. But I
Mhm.
sent a ton of messages on LinkedIn. But it was so honoring when someone would say yes. Like
Yeah.
I was blown away by how many people are willing to help. Or, I was talking to my neighbor who works in HR, which was one of my areas of interest. She's like, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Like, let's." So we decided to go to the pool on a Friday evening, and just she shared with me and chatted with me and told me all about her job. And since then, we've talked about this journey so much more. So the fact that people were just willing to help. I don't even know if I'm answering your original question now,
Mhm.
but it was amazing get just to ask people about their life and have them share and then become encouragers.
Mhm.
I was meeting with a lot of financial coaches, so that was even better because coaches are just the best humans to be around in general. And then they would turn into like they would even email me to follow up and say, "Where are you at with your process? What did you land
Oh.
on?" And it was amazingly motivating.
Yeah, Kelsey and I talk about that a lot about how it's informational interviews are important for many reasons, but one of them like you're saying, is creating these career champions, people who are cheering you on, career cheerleaders, whatever term you want to use, and just making it such a less isolating experience. I mean, it'll be less isolating by you and me working through it together, but then we're also getting you out to have those people in your community who are then cheering you on. And so many people, there's so much um, there's often shame surrounded in a job search. And I can understand, maybe where that comes from, people losing jobs, not being able to provide for their family. I have just like images of the Great Depression coming up in my mind, honestly. So I understand that there are so many real emotions involved there, but um, talk more about how just talking about what you were doing. I mean, ultimately, talking about what you were doing is what led you to this job and just like mentioning it in a conversation, right? So let's get there first by saying, like, what conclusion did you first come to when we were working through your career options? Like, where did you land?
Mm-hmm. So I landed in a spot I never expected to land whatsoever. That I had decided I wanted to be a financial coach, but I did not believe that I could ever do it on my own or have my own business. I would open with, it was one of my questions in my informational interviews. My husband's more the entrepreneurial guy, and I prefer to work for a company, have the consistency, just I'm more of the work for a business kind of person. And I would ask people, do you know of jobs that exist that you can be employed to do this? And we would talk about it, and it was always something that came up. And then I even found some opportunities at university, and I was like, okay, that could be really cool. But they ended up being my like least exciting interviews. That I was like, the people that work for themselves seem so much happier and so much just more enthusiastic with their role. So and through a lot of prayer, by no like belief of my own, like the Lord just made it come to life that it was possible, that I could do it. And on paper, it made sense, but I still didn't quite believe it. But I just was feeling these nudges that it was like, go for it. And even if it doesn't work, if you don't try, like it's going to feel worse than failing.
Yeah, kind of exposure therapy to failure.
Right.
Yeah, because we share our Enneagram 1 personality type. So we connect on a lot of these kind of fears, which is why I felt so honestly comfortable pushing you outside of your comfort zone. So I was like, I know she can handle it. I know she can handle it.
I know
Like,
she
we are
wants
very
to
similar.
go.
Yeah, yes. It's like fly, fly. So it sounded like you had this identity of, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. And like surrendering that identity is what then opened up so much possibility for you. Would you say that's a good summary?
Yes. And realizing how much saying that every time, I'm not an entrepreneur, my husband is. I was just like wearing it like this label or almost like just a
Mhm.
restrictive band that was like, stop saying that. Like maybe if
Yeah.
you stop saying that, it won't be true. So it was
Hmm.
pretty cool, even though now things changed a little bit. Just to even reach that point was pretty pivotal.
Yeah. And confidence building to it's hard because these labels are helpful a lot of times. It's like, oh, well, I think about my own story of I'm not an entrepreneur. That's why I'm able to work with Kelsey, right? Who is the entrepreneur? That's why we have a good partnership. But it was actually Kelsey who pushed me to really see myself beyond that label of like, why am I not an entrepreneur? And starting to really think about that more and not using that label in as a tool now rather than something to hold us back. And I think it's always important to take kind of a critical view of how we're using labels and if they're helpful or if they might be keeping us from opportunities and exciting ventures in our lives. So you decide to go ahead with the financial coaching. You're like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going all in.
Yep.
What happens then?
So I got a good Black Friday special on training through Financial Coach Academy. Saved $500. Signed up. The plan was to get started on the academy. And then my husband and I went to our annual meeting with our financial advisor at Edward Jones, and she's amazing. Love her. She's a powerhouse woman financial advisor, so encouraging. She goes, "How's the dental office?" And I said, "It did not work out." I said, "I've been working with a career coach for the last 6 months, and I decided I'm going to be a financial coach and do my own thing. And I can hardly believe it, but here it is." And she goes, "Have you ever thought about working for Edward Jones? A lot of what I do is coaching." And she's like, I'm going to be needing a new administrator. Would you want to talk about it? We could have coffee." And
Amazing.
from there, it just fell into place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it brings together these two things that you are very talented at and very excited about, which is personal finances and administration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Pretty cool.
just in a way that we could have never written ourselves,
Never.
which then leads me to my next question, which is what did you learn? And we've kind of been talking about this, but what have you learned about trusting God in this process?
So much.
Yeah.
So much. That he won't let us down. And sometimes we need to just get out of the way. That's what
Mm-hmm.
he showed me. And also that I can bring anything to him, like every little bit of it, even what feels small. And that's why the prayer calls. Oh, I loved the prayer calls. Not
Yeah.
only did they create accountability of showing up, it was somewhere to be
Mhm.
twice a week to talk about progress, but then to just take everything straight to God. It's like the Lord was just I was a believer, but it was like the boiler that I hadn't lit and giving him my career as well.
Wow. That surrender again. Um, two things coming up here really surrender and then accountability. So, can you talk more about how accountability maybe led to like finally breaking out of a spiral or like overthinking or whatever was leading to inaction in the first place?
Definitely. Accountability and not being alone and having you as my
Mm,
coach and in showing up, like really in showing up because I ended up not working during the time that I was coaching. It was a huge blessing. I never expected to be off full time, and there's some pros and cons with that. As we learned,
mhm,
um, but having somewhere to show up when I had so much less structure in my day, not working, was key. And I noticed if I wasn't there at the Monday prayer call, the rhythm of my week was different. And so to show up was really important. And then in my informational interviews, I met with a coach in Austin, Brett, and he answered all my questions. He's a financial coach, and he invited me to his Monday group that meets Mondays at 11. And so I started hopping in there. Monday at 11, I would meet with them, and then Monday at 12 was the prayer call. And now I'm still a part of that group. I've been meeting with them since I think August.
yeah.
Just missing a few weeks here or there, but otherwise we're there. And that is one piece that I know I have to keep showing up because right now my new job is taking precedence. I still plan to become a financial coach. It's just now it's long game, which gives it an
Mhm.
even better chance of success, hopefully. But it's long game. But I know every single Monday at 11, I need to keep showing up. And that's going to be a big part of how I get to it.
Mm, hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is such a good takeaway for people is think about the ways that you can have accountability and like integrate accountability into your life, whether that's a weekly meeting that you can go to and or or joining coaching, you know, give me a call. Also, tell literally everybody. Going back to that conversation about how there just I feel like there's this shame that people feel about not wanting to say that they're looking for a job or even just the gossip of it all. Like, what are they going to be saying? And who knows? Is it going to get back to my employers? Laying down that shame, telling everybody what you're doing, because then people are going to ask you. People are going to be like, how's that going? You're going to have to give them an update.
Mm-hmm.
And if that feels really scary, that's good. It that probably means that it's worth doing. So you talked a little bit just about like talking to people in the informational interviews, but um, Would you say that you felt like pretty open when you were talking to people in your community? Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking for people to talk to about this and this. Like, how did that kind of play into your process?
I I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed sharing. I definitely did feel with each person I shared with, it created some accountability for the future, but also just helped me own what I was walking through. And it was also
Mhm.
like being a Christian career coach. It was such a way to like share my faith that I didn't really expect. Like I would say, "Oh, I'm working with a Christian career coach, and I'm just going to be discerning, what God really calls me to do," and would kind of explain the process that I'm going to come up with some hypothesis careers, and then I have to meet a bunch of people and talk to them about what they do, and they would people would just be like, "That sounds great, like, wow, that's cool." And then they would check in, like you said, and it
Mhm.
was very cool. So pulling in others, and it gave me something to talk about when it's not like, what do you do? Like, oh, let me tell you, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love giving um an answer with just all the details. Like, oh, I'm not going to just give you a one word answer. I'm going to tell you the entire story of how I got to where I am today. Even though you didn't ask, but you kind of did. So,
Whoever writes a good story, who are we not to tell it?
exactly, exactly. And that's something that's so exciting to see about just the people that I get to work with, that we get to work with, and seeing how God just really does bring together this amazing story. And it's exciting to share on the podcast. It's exciting to share with the people in your life. And if a job transition is feeling, I mean, like, of course, there's so many emotions with it, like we were talking about. But if it is feeling like 100% a drag, I think that's a really good sign that it's time to bring in some external perspectives. So, what was it like for you to have external perspectives? I guess that was largely me, and Kelsey as well, and the other people in the called career on prayer calls and group calls and everything, to have that external perspective so that you weren't spending all your time in your head.
Oh, it was vital. It was so good. I think of my husband the most because for him to not have to be the primary sounding board and just to be supportive, I'm sure that that was such a relief for him because I am often an external processor. I like to talk things out, but this kept him from being the person at the opposite end of the word assault. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was great. And I would just tell him like, that we had a meeting and kind of summarize rather than having to like work through the nitty gritty together. So
Mhm.
it was incredible. And then also to hear others, you share something that feels small and then others are like, wow, like that's cool. Like it was something that feels small. It just is kind of magnified when you have a few others to just
Mhm.
share the glory with.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we're celebrating it all over here. Um, and that's something I always tell people about the group element because I think you can let me know what you were thinking when we initially started talking, and I probably mentioned that there was a group element to it. And I see a lot of people get kind of nervous about that. I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me tell you, the group is the best part. And that's me, an introvert, someone who loves spending time by herself. I'm like, no, the group is the best. The prayer calls are the best, as you've mentioned, which you were such a faithful participant of. And Kelsey and I love that so much, seeing Lauren Miracle pop up in the, sorry, I just dropped your full name. You have the best last name ever. So, but we loved seeing you pop up in the Zoom room. So, um, seeing other people go through the journey, you all have your own stories, but like just having that community as well. Was that something that you were nervous about, or did it not really bother you? You just wanted to see how it played out. Like, what were your thoughts there?
About the community aspect.
The group coaching
I
aspect.
don't I don't really remember talking a lot about it beforehand. I think
Hmm.
I knew about the prayer calls. I think I was just like, I need a partner. I need someone to not feel alone in this, and you offered yourself to be that. And
Hmm.
so everything else was just kind of confetti from there. But once I got to the program, absolutely, the group was wonderful. I do regret not participating in more group coaching calls things just got kind of fuzzy in my decision and then came together. So I didn't go a whole lot, but those were definitely really great workspaces where there were things to learn and unpack, and just even watching others walk through their questions was really beneficial. So
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. It's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. The group calls, I have to tell you, something about the new year energy, I think. They've been popping off over here. We've like
Good.
so many people. Um, and the group calls typically are, maybe like 5, 6 people max. So it's just been great to see everybody being able to help each other out, celebrate in those small wins, bounce ideas off of each other and everything. Um, but thinking back to like earlier in your process, something that we really was so exciting to walk through together was kind of just breaking through these fears, because we do a fear assessment part, and you don't have to share details if you don't want to, but can you just share what that experience was like? Were you expecting fears to come up in this career transition, and as they did, how did it feel to actually name them, address them, and work through them?
It, I definitely expected fear to come up. And
Yeah.
so I remember reading through it the first time, and I think I somehow missed it. I think I told you that. I was like, somehow I missed that when I first went through it. And you said it has a funny way of showing up right when you need it to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the teachings on fear from Jamie Winship changed my life. I mean, life changing. We did a favorite things gift exchange in my Bible study, and it was like a $10 limit, and you had to bring
Uh-huh.
three of the same thing. And I was like, gosh, what can I get? And I was like, Jamie Winship is one of my favorite things from this year. And so I gave his book at the Christmas party where you read Living Fearless.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a game changer, just to really ask the Lord, what do you call me? I mean, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And also the fear setting of just like walking through it, like, what's the worst that can happen? And then what will you do? Because I had been prone to catastrophize and like think through all the bad things that could go wrong and come up with maybe some like solutions that were more like a hamster running on a wheel forever and ever. But this really put it into grid form, which I love a good table or spreadsheet, and to say, okay, in this time period, if this goes wrong, what will you do? So
Mm-hmm.
it was great. That definitely one of the most beneficial aspects of the program, because I did really need to sit
Good.
with those fears and unpack them and leave them behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you gave Jamie Winchip's book away for the favorite things party. That is perfect. That's such a good idea. And with the just like the what do you call me, that being a big piece for you, I see that help so many people and help me as well. And just revisiting that prayer. And if you're listening and you're like, what are you talking about? Just listen to some Jamie Winchip stuff, and it'll come up,
Seriously.
or come talk to us. We can work through it.
Or even just
Um,
praying the big prayer of like, I didn't know you could ask God a question like that. Like,
yeah.
I remember the first time was before I really like watched more stuff, but there was just kind of an excerpt that was like, ask God, what do you call me? And I was just like, you can do that? Like, and he's going to answer? Like,
Mhm.
it almost felt presumptuous. And I was like, no, like, just, and so I had to spend quite a bit of time in it, but it happened. He shared with me.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite ways to pray is, hey, God, you said and X, Y, and Z. I love to remind him what he says. I love to be a little feisty with it. Like you said, when I ask for wisdom, you will provide it. James 1:5. You said X, Y, and Z. And just being bold in that prayer, because do he can handle it. He can surely handle it. Of course, we must have fear of the Lord and reverence for the Lord. But being bold in those questions, and not allowing that fear to then the bad fear to like drive you away from God, right? Like allow it to draw you to His feet, and just laying down all your questions and your thoughts and your concerns and fears and everything down at His feet. I think that is so like I loved seeing you through that journey and learning from you in that journey as well. And like you said, that I said, because it's true, with so many people, the fears, it just comes up at the right time a lot of times in the curriculum. Like people miss it on the first round, or they're like, ah, oh, hey, I don't really need that. And then we have our first session together and a lot of stuff comes up. I'm like, how about now? And they say, yeah, it might be good to revisit some fears. Um, and that's just one of my favorite things to walk through with people because it can be so transformational. And like, I just remember or the second call it would have been, you came on, you're like, this is what I'm learning. This is what's going on. This is how I think it's going to affect blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm like, cool, cool, cool. Let's move on to the next step. Let's do the next thing and continue to work through that as we're going. So thinking about all of this, thinking about your journey, if you were to tell Lauren 6 months ago, or I guess like maybe 8 months ago, anything about your career, what would you say?
What would I tell myself if I knew I was about to go through coaching or I didn't?
Good clarifying question. Before you knew you were going to go through coaching.
Before I knew.
Yeah.
If it was the time before I knew, I would say you're not alone in this. Recruit a partner.
Yeah.
Like just realizing that there's help available for anything you're walking through. Like no man is an island. We have the Lord, but we also have the resources of one another. And so just realizing there's someone you can lean on, sort of like you told me, because I'm now in a job that I have to wear real clothes for the first time since COVID. And I'm like, oh, that's the scariest part. I have to wear real clothes and real shoes again. And you're like, maybe consider now that you're going to have an income, you thought you were going to be running your own business, not earning any money for about, who knows how many months. And so maybe now you can like get a stylist. Like someone can help with that. It's fine. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that answered the question as far as my career, but I would say recruit a partner. Otherwise, if I didn't know I was going into coaching, I really think I would still be lost right now walking through.
Yeah. Oh, Lauren, that answers the question so perfectly. Recruit a partner. And you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to repeat it again. I am like a recovering hyper independent woman, I guess. And I just thought I had to do everything by myself. It's like, well, I had this mentality of like, well, I can. If I just spend enough time, I can figure that out. If I just had all the time in the world, I could figure that out. If I just had, bought another book or watched another podcast or whatever, I could figure that out. And then it was the moment for me where I was like, yeah, but I don't have to. Like, I could recruit a partner. And now I love recruiting partners in everything I do. I think I like delegating and like asking for help maybe a little bit too much. I'm like, help me with this and this and this. And it's just such a blessing. I was talking about this with a friend this weekend. Like the discipline to receive is so real and such a hard, a forgotten discipline in our world. Like even just receiving a compliment, receiving help, receiving criticism, receiving just being receptive to what trusted people around you have to say and like want to do for you. It's such a gift to let other people use their gifts to help you. Just like when we talked about informational interviews, and I was like, ask people for connections because people who like connecting people often have a gift for connecting people. And if they have that gift, you should let them use that gift. So you're going to be actually helping them by asking them for help.
As backwards as it sounds. It's true. Yeah.
A roundabout way of saying it, but it is true. So practicing that discipline of receiving or reception and recruiting a partner, I think that is like the best thing that you could tell yourself and anybody else as well. But for the person out there who's considering recruiting a partner, considering signing up for coaching, whether it's career coaching or coaching in any other aspect, we'll focus on career coaching because that's, what you and I are talking about. What would you tell them?
What would I tell someone considering coaching?
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Really?
I feel like it would be pretty hard to regret it because maybe if you have a lot of motivation, self-discipline, you're not struggling, you're meeting your goals, okay, fine. Maybe you can handle it on your own. But otherwise, just going back to accountability, and this is like organized accountability, having someone to be your sounding board, you know, the shoulder when you need them to be a shoulder, an advisor. I just think it's golden to not be alone. Like on the way home today, getting ready to do this episode, I was just like, the thing that just kept coming to my mind was just, I just wasn't alone. And job
Mhm.
hunting can feel so lonely and just kind of like you're putting yourself out there, like, pick me, please pick me. And it's just a tough, tough time. So to not be alone is golden.
That warms my heart because that's what I want people to know as well, is like you don't have to do this all alone. Recruiting a partner, leaning on other people, surrendering, whether it's pride, sorry if you feel called out there, surrendering pride, surrendering control, whatever it is, surrendering finances, like quite honestly, whatever it is, I would love to talk to you about that and talk to you what it realistically looks like to have a partner in all of this. So schedule a call if you want to talk through that. But Lauren, I just want to say I've loved chatting with you today. I think so much of what you shared is A, so relatable for people, and B, going to be really helpful for people to just hear a true God story, and like how things didn't work out the way that we could have ever planned or imagined ourselves, but that's good and that's beautiful, and it's far better than anything that you and I could have planned out. And that is the Lord coming in hot and doing what he does. And I'm so um, impressed by you just creating the space for that to happen. So thank you for allowing me to be on that journey with you.
Well, thank you for everything you did for me in the process. It was amazing. I told you when you sent me the sign off, like, okay, this means we're about to wrap. And I tried to respond about 3 times that day, and I just couldn't. I just wasn't ready because it was going to be hard to move on. But it's like, you know what? We met a goal. We did the thing. Like, we accomplished what we set out to accomplish. And one cherry on top that I want to share and how God provided is that I had finally given up this idea that I needed to have a job with PTO and benefits and 401k matching and all of the things. Whereas once I thought that was a must have in any job. And so I was ready to do my own thing and earn modestly, and it was going to be fine. And then with this job, I now have the most robust benefits that I worked for small businesses for my whole entire career. And now I've got these amazing benefits, 3 weeks of PTO right from the start. So just praising God, how he showed up. I'm a part of this giant network. So it's going to be the best health insurance I've had, like,
Oh my
ever.
God. That's amazing.
So just shout out to the Lord. He provides, he will lead, he will show you the way. So thank you,
Yeah.
Audrey.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm so glad we got to talk today.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.